Okay, so the first step for the flex fuel is to pull the EFI main fuse number 2, which is this 30 mil, and then remove the high power fuel pump connector, which is right here. Start the car, which I already did, until the car dies. Once it dies, that should discharge the system of fuel, at which case I went to the back and unplugged the battery negative before the rest of the install. So that part's already been done, and now I have the flex fuel kit here, and I want to go over what I actually needed to do for the install for that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just pry up these orange tabs on this fuel line that runs under this connector. You can see I already pried this corner up, just very gently with a flathead. You just pull up on it. So I'll do the same here. Successfully pry it, and just pull right up. Be very gentle not to break anything here. Okay, so pretty much you're going to want to take this connector off and definitely have a rag underneath, because even if you start the engine and get the pressure out, some fuel will drip, and the headers are right under there, so be really careful. And then you're going to want to disconnect this T-fitting part of it as well. Follow it until you get here, and there's an actual connector on top that you'll remove. It said that this part's not needed for reinstallation, so I'm just going to keep it in my bin of OEM parts, and then you'll slowly remove this. Put a rag underneath it as well. However, this one didn't drip as much, so I moved the rags to where I was more worried about fuel dripping out from. And then the next step is to actually remove this entire fuel line, which it's bolted in right under there. Okay, so here's the old setup, the OEM line with the T in it. Pretty much how this is going to work is the fuel pump line, high pressure line, will connect to this connector. The Stratified unit sits in between, and then this goes to where that green lock went. And then there's a supplied connector from the sensor that you route through the engine bay into the car. And that's what actually gives your EcuTech the ability to read the ethanol levels. So I'll go ahead and install this now and show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so I got the fuel lines portion all wrapped up. So everything clicks in a very satisfying manner when you're plugging it in. So you go from the high pressure line to the Stratified unit. OEM T line stays the same and plugs in. I still have to lock it. This is the Stratified unit, and I left it loose, which it advises to, just while you're plugging everything in, so that you're not bending anything harshly, which was a really good call from them, because it needed a little bit of adjustment to get this line in. It clicks here, very satisfying. Clicks here, very satisfying. And then now the next step is to actually tighten this bolt now that everything's in, and then we're just doing the wiring after that, which will run through this OEM loom, and we'll follow it around, tuck it under the wheel well, and put it into the interior. So you're supposed to use a pick to open all these to get this loom through. I do not have one. I would heavily recommend getting one. But what I'm doing instead is getting this 90-degree flathead and just wedging it in and kind of popping it the same way I would use a pick. Just going very gently and very slow, so I don't break anything. It's a little bit more of a struggle, but I got this one, for example. Just pushed in, popped it, kind of wedged it on both sides, and then that got it out without breaking anything, so I'm just going to follow suit along each and every one of these. Okay, so I ran the cable from this plug. Obviously you should wear gloves. So I ran it from this plug through this sheath, and then it looks like you kind of tuck it under and then zip tie it to this wiring harness, and then it goes out through a grommet, and I have to take some of this fender liner out to then get it into the interior. Okay, so you can take this entire fender liner off, but I'm just kind of working with the space I have. So I was able to pull the cable from above, and I only unclipped a few of the clips back here because I have enough room to like feel with my hands, but there's a grommet that holds the wiring loom, so I'm just following it, making sure it's tucked through there, and then it's going to go into the interior, and then I'm going to just clip the few clips I unclipped here rather than take the whole thing off. Okay, so for the interior, once I fed the wire through the firewall, there's actually a grommet I pushed through, and then I'm going to cut it so that the cabling sits in the middle of it and that it doesn't rub against any harsh metal or anything like that. Once you open up the interior, you have to pull up this piece, literally just pull on this end and pull on this end and it just pops. Then I took the glove box off, which you just open it. You can see this lever, you just squeeze this side tab. You literally just squeeze that so that it's not fully seated in this lever, and then that will let you pop this lever off, and then you can just kind of slowly, gently move the glove box back and forth and it will let you remove it. And then the last piece is I have to get that screw, the plastic screw off, and then that will let me actually do the final part of the wiring, which I'll show you in just a moment. Okay, so the kit comes with this ethanol content analyzer. That cable you just fed through connects to this side of it. This side, there's a CAN bus connector that they supply with the kit, and you literally unplug the OEM connector, which is right here. Sorry if it's kind of dark. And then you plug that into the jumper harness, and then that gives you kind of like a extra connector for the ethanol analyzer. And then you connect it back into the OEM spot, so you're just jumping it to add that extra connector, which then goes into this, and there's some 3M tape on the back to mount it. Okay, so the final step is just to make sure there's no leakage. I had the car turn on, I had a fire extinguisher nearby, and I'm just feeling the lines because it's kind of dark, making sure nothing's leaking, and it seems to feel tight. Turned on just fine. And then my final routing was through this loom, up, kind of followed the natural harness, followed this to the side. So followed the natural harness here, went through the wheel well, inside the car. I tucked the unit in. There's like a little spot right there. You can see the flashing. I apologize for how dark it is outside, but it's tucked behind the glove box with 3M tape. And now my EcuTech can read the ethanol percentage and I can get a retune for E50 or E65. Okay, so the final steps of that install, which I didn't record because it was getting super dark, was just to put the interior back together. I cut all the zip tie ends and then made sure the fender liner was back on, and made sure my EcuTech could actually read the ethanol, which I'll show you on screen. Once you see that, you know you're good to go and you can put everything back together. So if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate it. Thank you for any comments, subscriptions, or likes. It really helps. A little bit goes a long way. So once again, hopefully you guys enjoy your tune and get your Limit +1 or Stratified tunes in and enjoy your GR.